It's really lovely to see you.
Oh.
You know, there have been times when I never thought I ever would see people again over the last while. It just...
Yeah, insane. And still going on.
The funny thing is, being here this week and seeing people, it's just like I saw them yesterday.
Yeah, that's what good friends are like, aren't they? When you finally hook up with them, you pick up.
But they're not, they're just people that I've been seeing for years and years at fashion shows. And then it's like nothing happened, you know, when you see them, and it's like you saw them yesterday. Nobody looks older, nobody looks, nothing happened. And then the funny thing is, when you, it's like at fashion shows, and that sort of funny fashion thing, that you used to go to a show, see somebody you'd seen at the show before, like an hour ago, sit next to them and have a conversation like you hadn't seen them for a year, even though you'd seen them 3 or 4 times already that day. Loads to talk about. Now, when you haven't seen people for a long time, people don't have anything to say.
I totally get it that people want the physicality, but at the moment, where my head is, through film, I can express myself in this way. I mean, at the end of the day, Tim, it has to be a reflection of society, doesn't it? So if society's moved on, but there has to be something where one could maybe explore film and the physicality.
Yes,
I don't just mean a premiere or, you know, but something, which is what we did with the Artisanal, but
I mean, those
I feel
films...
lame, that's a polite word. I did think of an expletive earlier, but I would feel lame at the moment to just go back to a white runway and a white box. I would feel lame. But you know, it's got to be a reflection of what time is and people want.
Very few people explored the digital option the way you did. There weren't many people who took that ball and ran with it the way you did. So that was, I loved all of that. I loved being able to sit at home and watch things on my own, just watch your films, watch Teresa's films, whatever.
I guess when that's all you're doing is watching films on that format, then I guess it creates an anguish or a hankering for the physical. No, I don't know, I just hear they miss the excitement. I mean, you know, I got my gang around me, my husband, they miss the bars. It was like, well, personally, I can live without that.
I can live without the buzz.
That anxiety.
I can live without the... I think it's...
Driven backstage, line up, maybe because we've done so many rock and roll shows.
Yeah.
And this medium is quite fascinating. Hey, look, never say never. You know, I'm quite an open guy. And like I said, I think it should be a reflection of where we are today in society and how people want to view these things.
But look at where you went, look at where you took it in 18 months.
Well, it's
From the first one to the last one. Look where you took it.
It's not just where we took it, but the effect it's had on the business as well has been fantastic. I mean, we're a small company, so we can kind of ride, you know, reactive, spontaneous if we have. The kind of effect it's had on the construction of collections, how we deliver them, the nobility now that replica has taken on, that where it's even sold in, there's all these amazing things despite this treacherous time we're going through that have happened, which I think may not have happened when one was so perhaps not 100% in the moment. Well, we shot this in July. Along with, so we shot the Artisanal, the Co-Ed, and the Icon collection. I just took 10 days out of my agenda, and it was consecrated to the creation of image and filming. So this collection's been sold. It was sold in July. It's delivered in December. I'm putting together the AVP now, which will be delivered in January, February. So even in-house, it's helped us with our producers, because we had to produce how and when we could, and reaching out to suppliers and buyers and saying, look, John can pull this off and it's going to be available at this time, and he promises to deliver. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. Yeah. Really?
And you think you wouldn't have done that
No.
without this sort of...
What, to have 3 collections lined up in some kind of airport waiting to take off? That's how it felt. One's had to deal with the emotions and things. I mean, I was downstairs merchandising with the gang, the AVP, and I felt so mean because I knew this film was at 2:30. So I was going really fast. Yeah, put that, so let's do that, let's do this, let's do that. Stop, so the gang could see the film. Do you know what I mean? And then switch back onto merchandising because we had other things to do. It's weird, but I'm able to do that now. It's that taking that excess adrenaline away from your adrenal glands that keeps one a little bit more focused. And you know, after those shows, I have to go to a detox. I have to just get away.
So it's that taking that physical element out of things has freed you to, wow, well...
I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, Tim. I mean, the hours, you're still filming, the editing. The co-ed, we were up against the clock because I think it was like 73 outfits that had to be filmed over, was it 2 days or 3 days? 3 days. So actually, backstage, because I wanted to concentrate my muses, there was like 5 or 6 of them, was like a constant quick change backstage of a fashion show. So the kids, they got their adrenaline rush, they call that. The reason for that, continuity, the idea that I could work with my tribe, my community, which you saw in the artisanal, then generationally you recognize them again in the co-ed, and then that's distilled, if you like, to Thomas and Lulu that represent the Margiela boy and girl today in icons.
And you use, it's almost like a repertory company.
What's a repertory
like a theatre group. It's a repertory company where you have your own group of actors. You know,
they're my muses. They're my muses. We
yeah.
share so much. They bring so much to the equation. I spend so much time with them as well. And it's quite magical when you have that gang around you, because either side of filming or shooting or fitting, one has the time to chat and to just listen to them. And sometimes I'm eavesdropping and I'll just bust in because I've heard someone say, you know, sometimes I find it's really difficult. I don't think before I speak, and I'm like, oh, let's talk about it, because I have that problem sometimes too. Or, do you know what, John? I've never said this to him, but I walk in circles in the morning. I was like, so do I. Wonderful to connect at that level and share and say, it's really not a problem, I do that. It's really not a problem. That's, if I had to take anything out from all this filming and all that fantastic emotional time spent with my muses, it's that. Surely.
You like to have a gang, don't you?
I do. It's really special when you have this community working with you. It just, it's joyous. One develops a shorthand. While we're fitting, often I don't actually speak. They don't necessarily speak. Unless I say, how do you feel in that, or whatever. But just through their body language and what they do with things, it just speaks volumes. And it's quite fabulous to have had that time with them closely, that one can develop almost a shorthand of feelings that can direct the fitting.
Have you ever had that before in your career? Have you ever had this kind of intimacy?
Not with such a, yes, I've had the intimacy, of course, but it's always been a Suzanne von Aischinger or a Sibylle de Saint-Phal, or it's kind of not this community now, because you know, for some time now, I have boys and girls in the fitting and things are cross-reference. I'll try it on Anton, that dress, and I'll try it on Nikki. I don't want to bore you with all that, but that's how I do, and that's how the team develops an eye for maybe finding different sensual areas to explore that aren't the obvious.
this was the sort of glitchiness of this, the sort of the speed of it, and the theatricality of it, felt. I guess it's co-ed is obviously a different collection from Artisanal, but the last film you made, which was a proper, evolved kind of pagan experience.
Yeah, it was also quite intense because I don't know if it had been done before or whether you'd noticed, but I was heavily involved in the script. So the clothes were a reflection. So the script and clothes worked together. They were inextricably linked. You couldn't separate them. So as the narrative evolved, so did the collection. So the clothes they were wearing echoed the narrative. I'm not saying you should go and watch it again because it's quite long. But
no, but it was a proper. It was a proper.
Oh yes,
a proper narrative.
Yes.
Long kind of horror movie.
Folk horror, yes.
Folk horror movie.
Yes, because the idea for that, the idea of horror or being inspired by that, just helped me emotionally connect and explain what it feels like when you're doing research or you're discovering things, the highs, the lows, the anxiety, the this, the excitement. And the horror genre helped me thread that through as a story.
How?
Because horrors do that. It's just the emotions, the span of emotions. The interest in the genre of horror had already started to happen a bit as I said, trying to maybe reflect the highs and lows and that one experiences when one is putting a collection together. The idea at the beginning to be filmed, although it was by Nick, a good old friend, but you know, to capture that authenticity, the idea that it was voyeuristic, shot through doors, shot through mirrors, drones flying around. I'm going back a few now. To capture that, the creative moment was being captured by an outsider. They're all, if you like, notes of a horror.
So that was all during lockdown. You created that.
Lots of things. Well, yeah, in the first lockdown, I was in Mexico.
Wow.
For about 6 weeks. And then there was the announcement of the last planes to take off. I was like, I think we really have to catch that next plane now, which we did. And when we got to Mexico City, you know, it's one of the biggest airports in the world, ghost town. By then I needed some retail therapy, but all the shelves were empty. It was like so spooky. I can't explain, so spooky. It was there that I came to terms with the fact that fashion, or at least fashion the way we knew it or we were showing it, would never be the same until we found
vaccine.
A vaccine, forgive me. And highs and lows and horrors, what are we going to do, what are we going to do? Once I embraced that idea that, look, John, it's just not going to be the same. The supply chain, everything's going to be affected. So, of course, we became more resourceful. And then this idea that through film we could also reinforce the ethics of the house took a great appeal for me. I thought, what, you know, I can create like this. There was no way I was not going to create. Even if it was with a smaller team, and we were all masked up and following the rules, and some people could only come up one way and the others had to exit that way. There was no crossing, and trials had to be disinfected and sprayed down. I mean, that was back then when it first kicked off. So that's really this whole idea of film. I felt was yeah.
What I'm thinking is that the four films. This is the fourth. Is this the fourth? This is the fourth.
I don't know. I'd have to check. We did.
But the first one, was the revelation, you, the way people had never seen you before.
What
with
revelations
Nick
are
Knight,
we-
you know, with Nick Knight, your working process, that incredible.
right.
You know,
Yeah, well-
you'd never opened your doors before, and this was that just blew people's minds. Then there was Blood Wedding.
And really, Nick wasn't here, but he was directing, and it was quite cool the way we did it. Although sometimes, you know, those drones, we got used to it. But quite simply, all my gang, they had GoPros here and GoPros there. Even Gypsy and Coco had GoPros, so we get the doggy point of view, strapped on their bodies, which they loved. So after a few days, one actually forgot. So what he captured was the real thing. That was not play acting or reenacting. That's as near, I think, as fly in the wall stuff could go.
The first film was revelation, really, in
Right.
a way. People had never seen you in that light.
Well, also, I think, I mean, apart from the privileged view, I mean, I think you had seen Toiles or Tarleton and stuff, but a lot of people would never understand the process, the Tarleton to create the volume, then the Toile, or many Toiles, 3 or 4, 5 Toiles, before you even go into a prototype. So we just thought that for, you know, our younger viewers, the younger adults, that it would be nice to show them that process. They often only see the final. So it was a nice way, I thought, to devour that, to share, enjoy the, you know, the process.
And then the second film was more John, the way we know and love him. It was Blood Wedding? Was it
Right.
Blood Wedding? Which was the drama of Galliano.
Yes.
And the
Well,
sort
it was
of,
inspired by one of my research
yes, yeah.
trips.
Yeah.
I think I probably talked about it. I'm sure I did.
But I feel Lorca's been a part of you for a long time.
Yes, possibly.
What, you know,
Part of one's makeup.
yeah, Spanish heritage and all, yeah.
Yeah.
Then the third one was the movie, was the folk horror movie, which felt it felt that the intensity of that, the darkness of it, felt like a reaction, real reaction to the first one was intimate, the second one was you, like the first one was your physicality, the second one was your spirituality maybe, and then the third one was this view of the world. I thought that was,
Well, it was, I guess, going through
Opening up.
humbling and how little we are in the face of Mother Nature.
okay, yeah. So where does this one fit into that sort of scheme of that sort of evolutionary scheme?
Within all that, the idea that, you know, although we reference, you know, 10th century knights and things when she has a flashback in the Artisan, or that today these knights in shining armor with their spontaneously made carton, it wasn't meant to be aggressive or anything, and customized feral and cut, that it was their belief in the future that was their armor today. You asked me to remember that. I don't know if I delivered it.
That's
the same way.
exactly right.
And yeah, some of those backdrops serve as just metaphors to maybe open, invite a dialogue. You know, we talked earlier that I wonder if it is too soon to go back to the runway as we knew it, and do we want to go back to the runway as we knew it as well? I know some people have done incredibly exciting new things, and some are outside, and it's just a question if we have learned anything from.
Don't you feel you of all people have done runway to the absolute limit of runway's doability?
Sometimes I feel that, and then sometimes I feel we've done a lot of big shows and rock and roll shows, and you know, and in amazing venues, whether it's Versailles, you know, you've been to many of them. So no, I wouldn't say that there was still not something left to do, I just wonder if there's something I could do where I still embrace the film, which gives me so much. I mean, the gifts, the things that I can do with my assets afterwards in opening up platforms and communication with my community, it's kind of endless with film, you know? The information, the inspiration that gives the merchandising team and so on and so on, the visual merchandisers, is like they just love it. And I think the way they've been shot by Olivier Dahan is in a very respectful way for the clothes. I feel you do see them. I know people want the physicality, and I wonder sometimes on a runway, can you really tell the difference between a silk tulle and a cotton tulle, or is it polyester? I shouldn't say that. I know.
Is it duchesse? Is it nylon?
Even at that speed, they go. But I think I get the physicality of us in the industry all being together. I totally understand it. So anyway, just what I'm trying to say, is there another shot I could have with film? But also, I don't know how, embrace the physicality of it. I mean, Tim, when I was there with Olivia and I was seeing, you know, the sets, and you could light the girl and the clothes, the way, and I was sitting there, I was like, I wish Tim was here. Oh, I wish Anna was. And then I thought, oh, could this be it? But then that's theatre. And what I was seeing was spontaneous. So if that turned into something rehearsed, it wouldn't be the same. But to have had you guys there while all this was going on, this make-believe world with this LED screen where you could move a background, or have that tree over here, and just a second you'd move it, or have a thunderous pink-tinged cloud for 3 hours instead of 2 seconds, or a full lunar eclipse for 4 hours, and it was just like amazing.
Never
amazing,
mind
amazing.
having something which can be looked at next week, next year, next century.
And in your comfort too. I mean, there's just, you guys have to cover so much ground, and I just thought, you know, maybe at the end of the day when you're having a little drinky or tea or something that you could put on, you know, this is 11 minutes, I mean, the credits are 2. Anyway,
I'm thinking
at the
more
end
for
of the
you.
day, I guess it has to reflect where we all stand and feel, and never say never. That's what.
But I'm thinking more for you, and I do think about, this is one of the perverse things about fashion and its pomp in that golden era, was that those shows lasted, what, 10, the Opera Garnier?
7 minutes, 9 minutes.
Yeah, and then that was it. Never to be seen again by human eyes.
Yeah, I mean, they were recorded, Tim, but...
Were they?
Yeah, one did videos of them.
Yeah, but do you have full videos of all those shows?
I don't, but one can access them, yes, but...
But I mean, they weren't really...
There's a certain site you can go on.
Yeah, but they weren't really seen afterwards, you know, those... I don't think I've ever seen a beginning to end film of the Opera Garnier show.
Back in the day. Oh, you can see that.
Which is my favorite fashion show of all time.
You can see it. But then again, it wasn't necessarily filmed with today's object. You know, it's a whole different world.
But remember what Michael Howells did with every little alcove had something going on. So in any film you see, you do not see Nijinsky dancing, and you do not see Marchesa Casati with the wolfhounds, and all that peripheral
No, you're right.
stuff.
I'm sure there are some moments that were never captured.
Never captured.
I'm sure. Except in one's memory, maybe.
Living in memory. But that's the sort of, that was the extraordinary transience of fashion, which kind of drew, I guess it drew people, and it drew you in. You were very motivated to to create those moments of utter wonder that were gone then. And I just wonder how this to me, being able to make films, being able to create a lasting record, must be, I would think, more satisfying in a way. I mean, you have the rush of doing an incredible show, but I do sound like a...
There is the rush, if you call it, or that anxiety-driven moment too, when you're actually working backstage on a film. I mean, the process is very similar. You still have to create a collection. You still have to style it. You still have to have a running order. That film is in running order. So you get those rushes, you call them, or adrenaline, whatever, excitement for the gang and all that. Then the whole thing starts again, because then it's filmed. So that whole process, and then, yeah, it's...
Are you somebody who doesn't look back, though? You know, like David Bowie or Elton John, or people who never, ever listen to their, you know, say, I never listen to my old music, that sort of thing. Are you somebody who is always looking forward, never...
I try to, but I'm surrounded by people that often remind me,
yes.
John, like,
tirelessly.
That dress was wicked. And sometimes it comes at an inopportune moment when I'm so focused on what I'm doing that I don't really want to know about it. It depends. I can be more receptive when I'm not in that moment. And yeah, people have shown me clothes that and how much they're selling for incroyable coat, or yeah, and it brings a smile to my face.
and the actual working for film, with this, you know, when you have an idea in mind, you have a goal in mind when you're making a collection of how people are going to experience it. Has it changed the way you work, do you think? The way you design? I mean...
Well, I think this one, which took its inspiration from the folk horror, because I was involved in the script, and I mean, the collection was happening already, Tim, and then as the script kind of sharpened up or honestly, the collection inspired the script, and sometimes the script inspired the collection. When I said it was intrinsically linked, that's how that one worked, the artisanal folk horror. You know, now, each collection, there's no routine, each one I start in a completely different way.
So, explain that. What would be...
Sometimes it can start with a piece of music, or an obsession with a cut, or a mood. It's not, you know, each collection is very different. I mean, there are obsessions involved, of course. I mean, sometimes I have about 4 obsessions going before lunchtime.
The same obsessions, or
4 different
four
ones
different ones?
on, yes.
But I mean, different obsessions from the
really
last collection.
No, it could just be, well, I really want to try this now, and that mood, and this mood, and then I let that simmer a little bit, and then that opens doors into another whole thing. Maybe we've embraced a mistake or a surprise, or we didn't know that would, well, let's really embrace that and run with that. And it's put together in a more organic way, the collection. I think it's more, I mean, and the muses, I mean, it's beautiful clothes we're producing, and although I have all that around me, the narrative and all that, at the end of the day, I mean, it's how the muses react in those clothes that gives me that green light, you know, that I thought, yeah, this is...
And working with muses like that, do you feel... I've always thought of you as being not like a 20th century character. I mean, that your obsessions and muses and the sort of wildness of the art, the furiousness of the art.
The all-consuming,
yes,
passion.
Yes.
That one has to keep in check a bit.
Do you change your muses then?
We'll introduce sometimes 1 or 2 during the fitting, but well, you can see I like having my community around me because they've been so much a part of the creative process that I would feel a little, maybe lost. I felt quite tortured when Anton had to go back to school, but we had to let him go back because I kept him away from school for so long, and you know he had to do his degree, and when he went, I was like, oh my, you know, but it was okay. So we let him do his exams and stuff like that, and then he came back. So
I know what I want. I know what I was heading towards with that sort of that kind of free form thinking there. The idea, it's the idea of the impresario. That's what I was heading towards.
What idea of
this when I say not
what are you getting?
Diaghilev. That's what I was getting to. You know, with the group of muses and creating these incredibly idiosyncratic productions, everything, the dress, the decor, the visual record, everything. I've always said that though, that you felt to me like Diaghilev or somebody of that ilk.
Someone who pushes creatively to engage, to inspire, and what you can get back from that.
Yes.
Then if you want, yes, call it what you will.
Expressed a lot more lyrically than I was saying it. But yes, that's what I'm talking about, that you have the power to move this world, the world you're creating, you know? And that's why
I think the storytelling and the narrative and there is something quite magical when the kids click in and they become, I mean, sometimes I get quite teary. I remember at one point Olivier kind of kicked me. He went, after the third day of filming, she's acting. I was just pulling it off. I mean, Lulu, she was haunted, you know. She wasn't like the actresses that we all love that sometimes come with the baggage and they can open and I'm going to be that and I'm going to do that. This child was just haunted. And giving her that space and Olivia giving them that confidence with minimal directing. I mean, the directing was walk, sit, lie down. That's how minimal. To see them, Craig did it too. I think day 4 or 5, we were just like, wow. They were tapping into. I actually thanked Olivia at the end of it. I said, listen, it's major what you've done and the artistry and the whole film team, the way it's worked with the fashion team, and we know we all have stories to say of each. It's just like quite amazing. But what I want to thank you, really, Olivia, is those kids that are like 17, 18, you gave them the space to make believe. And I will never forget that. You see those kids just lost in this story. It's just the most moving, choking. It's make believe. It's what we all did. It's wonderful, no?
Is this a new sensation for you? I mean,
I've always been make believe in my head. I've always lived in my head from a child. You know, I've said this before.
Yes,
my chopper would become my black beauty horse, and I would make believe and escape, and I could do wonders on that. But that moment, that clarity, that moment when the creative process is bubbling and they link into something, and it's, as Olivia said, she's acting now. Wonderful. No?
Yeah. And I just wonder how, you know, you've had such huge challenges, and I wonder if this feels like the reward now, in a way, that there is a sort of, you know, I wouldn't say, is it peace or...
The challenges still exist, Tim, as
you
know. That doesn't kind of fly out the window, but one's perspective has changed. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like when I came back on the scene after Arizona. I knew the industry wouldn't have changed. I knew all that. It would be the same. And do I want to go back to this? Well, I had the tools. And my perspective of it had changed. I knew what I was walking into when I was ready to do it, but my perspective on it changed. So challenges is, yeah, of course they exist. It's not easy.
But I feel a change. I think I felt the change in you a while ago. But in that first film, for example, when I saw how prepared to be open that you were, and honest, and that felt. It felt like the next. Well, obviously the next stage of your life beginning, and I wonder if you feel that.
Well, I can only be honest now to survive. I never want to be lost in the layers and the layers that one was fabricating for whatever reason, and fearful and walking on eggshells every day of my life. Oh no.
I wonder what you see when you look forward now. When you look into the future, what do you see?
I'm able to be quite pragmatic about my future. I don't want to go into too many details, but I'm quite happy to discuss pragmatic things that perhaps couples don't discuss. But can we discuss this while I can discuss it, and let's just talk about the future? And then we can stop talking about it, Alexi. We can move on to something else, but please, let's just talk about this, because time.
And did you think that's maybe because there was a time when you thought maybe there wouldn't be a future? And these are...
I wasn't... did one worry as much about the future back then? No, you think you're going to live forever, don't you? And it's all... You do, don't you? You don't really, and then... Our time has flown.
Our time has flown. Do you feel,
I know it sounds like a granny thing to say.
Do you feel that?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about it all seems like yesterday. My God.
I mean, yes, it's flown. Wonderful time I've had and am having, don't get me wrong. But I understand now when people would say, go for it, John, you should go and do this, wear it, go for it. Well, I'm the same now. I was like, oh, don't think about it, just do it. Just go for it. You want to wear a dress at Maison Margiela? Please wear a dress. There's no problem. You know, yes, please. Yes, do. Yes. Speak openly about anything you want, because I'm all here for you.
And when you say perspective, you can see your entire life and you can get a sense of how that life will read to history.
Sorry, when you talk about perspective, well, I'm so grateful. I mean, what a life. What a life I've had. I mean, equivalent maybe 2 or 3 lives of someone else. And, you know, Gibraltar, London, I mean, St. Martin, what a life. It's just incredible. I'm, you know, amazing souvenirs and the people I've worked with. And I'm not being morbid at all, you know, talking about these things. It's just gratitude and what a life. It's been incredible, really. How lucky, how fortunate. I mean, how humbling, how why me, how? Yeah, sometimes when I'm sitting in the park on the bench with Gypsy and Coco, I'm like, how did this all happen, John? How did it happen?
Do you think you're someone who made things happen, or do you think you're someone who things happen to?
I think you can make things happen by belief. We talked about that earlier. Belief in yourself, energies you send out, the people that you attract. It's often not just one soldier. It's an équipe, it's a team. It's the people that you've shared time with, that have believed in you, that followed you blindly, given up their whole life for you, you know? Some have. It's those... Sorry, I've forgotten your question.
I said, do you think
far too far on the bumpers.
Do you think...
But I think you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, But when I first met you at on King's Road,
possibly
with Danda,
New Kings Road.
New Kings Road.
Overlooking Parsons Green. Shell Garage.
Ague Cheek or something?
Ague Cheek. 12th Night. Shakespeare.
And
Peter Bertelsen.
I remember you doubted yourself when I talked to you, and I was really surprised.
Hey, listen, there are still moments when I doubt myself. That doubt doesn't ever disappear. I promise you. I promise you. You can ask anyone here. I was doing breathing exercises before you walked in the room. I'm serious. That's why I wanted you to join in so we could share.
Oh.
Because I needed more breathing.
4 in, 4 out.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. There's doubt all the time. Is that part? I mean, I wonder if it's the doubt that releases certain chemicals in your body that makes you react in a certain way. You know, like I sometimes, when we're doing running orders and there's dramas, and I look at, oh, John, you just can't live without a drama, really. Your body needs it. I just wonder, I ask myself these questions, and I think we all do.
Do you think that's
It
true?
becomes a habit. Of course it does. Your body's used to reacting in situations, isn't it? You know, emotions come from memories. So unless you're going to change that memory and deal with it, and that's a big work to do, how can you change your emotional reaction to it? Of course there's doubt. There has to be doubt. I'm not sure of so many things I do. I'm the one that will ring the most junior members and what do you think? Was no? First thing after Christmas, Hervé, how'd it go? Give it to me straight. I think that's all part of who you are. The body hankers that. It does. It makes you react in a certain way or find a solution. I really think that we're addicted to the way we behave, and that when the body doesn't get that in certain situations, it hankers for it.
Do you think you're good at being on your own?
I love being on my own. I'm not alone.
Good.
I like solitude. I'm not a lonely person. Am I explaining that?
Mm-hmm. No, you like being alone.
Yeah, I like being on my own sometimes, and totally respect that others around me need that space as well.
We're talking about the present a lot, and I think you mentioned at the very, very beginning the issue of relevance. Whether you've found, whether you were looking for a new relevance in the light of the situation that we've been in, or what you feel relevance is now?
Relevance is what makes me go the next kilometer, because if I wasn't, then, well, I think I would be informed. One has to be relevant. I mentioned earlier the ethics of the house, and that through my work, my relevance can be heard, whether it's through replica or reticula and everything we've learned through that, or using dead stock fabrics, the sustainable, and all those little steps that we're making, I feel are relevant, right down to the way we merchandise collections now, the idea that you can walk into a showroom and see a collection as opposed menswear, women's wear, and that is having some inspirational effect on some stores out there. That's all relevant, isn't it, I think?
And I think of relevance as being something more. No, there's that. That's obviously a sort of social, cultural, political relevance, I guess, as well. But then I also think of the succor of the soul. You know,
the succor of the soul.
Succor. How do you pronounce it? Succor of the soul.
I'm not sure I understand.
You know, the balm of the soul, the relevant. When you
of the soul, the things that are good for the soul.
Yeah, when you're speaking to people on a level that's slightly more elevated, perhaps, than just issues like having a business which is sustainable and so on, that there's something which speaks to people on a sort of higher plane, maybe?
That I see through my muses. So I guess they would switch off if I wasn't being relevant.
Well, that's
Almost
useful.
like a litmus test, you know, you can, or they'll correct me or make me aware of certain things. Just, we've had to learn so much seen through a different lens. That's all relevant.
Do you
The
worry?
balm of the soul, j'adore ça. But that comes through, I think, touching people, like we talked about earlier, whether it is through the creative process and seeing that.
That's what I mean.
It is good for
touching
the soul.
people.
It
Touching
is
people.
good for the soul.
Do you worry about getting old?
No. You don't believe me, do you?
No, I
Look at
don't. I didn't worry about getting old
Only
at
when
all.
I'm reminded, maybe, and I'm like, oh, am I? Oh, child, really? Are you
that
only
question.
17? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, what? 80 what? You're 90 something you were born?
Yes, yes.
That's like someone bouleversé. Someone's pulling the rug. When they tell me what year they were born in, sometimes the children, I'm like, what?
2005. Like,
I have to breathe. I have to breathe. And like, oh my God, I graduated in that year. Oh my God, I was doing that in the 90s. Oh my God, I was... That's a bit of a jolt, isn't it? But then it's fine. Those numbers, that's all it is, Tim. Then it's fine to be able to connect with young kids like that. You know it's fine. It's good. That's a balm for the soul.
thank you, John.
Thank you, Tim.